work practices do not involve the use of respirators, decontamination chambers, or other asbestos abatement measures. Under the revised OSHA standard, the recommended work practices can be used for removals of intact flooring materials where a flooring supervisor has made a negative exposure assessment, NEA. OSHA has determined that an NEA can be based upon existing data in the OSHA asbestos rulemaking record, including the Environ studies, which show that the use of the recommended work practices during removal of intact flooring materials consistently results in exposure below the OSHA permitted levels. Thus, an NEA can be made where 1. Only the recommended work practices are used, 2. Properly trained workers perform the removal, and 3. Before the removal begins, the flooring supervisor assesses the job and determines that the flooring material is intact and is likely to remain intact during removal. Intact tile means that the product has not crumbled, been pulverized, or otherwise deteriorated so that it is no longer likely to be bound in the matrix. As OSHA has recognized, the incidental breakage of tile using the recommended work practices does not mean the tile is non-intact. Rather, tile becomes non-intact if certain mechanically aggressive methods are used, such as sanding, bead blasting, mechanical chipping, or the like. All of these aggressive methods are prohibited by the recommended work practices. OSHA requires that flooring workers who use the work practices take an 8-hour training course. A flooring supervisor or competent person must take the 8-hour worker course plus an additional 4 hours of training. Annual refresher training is also required by OSHA. The OSHA standard establishes other requirements for flooring removal jobs. Before starting the removal job, the flooring supervisor must provide notification of the presence and location of asbestos-containing resilient tile to 1. Flooring workers performing the removal work, 2. Employers of employees in adjacent areas, not separated from the work area by either a wall, closed door, or window, or other impermeable barrier, and 3. The building owner. In addition, where other workers or persons may have access to the flooring removal worksite, the flooring supervisor must establish a demarcated regulated area and post warning signs. The flooring supervisors also must be available to inspect the job site during removal if requested to do so by a worker. Workers who engage in the removal of asbestos-containing resilient flooring for more than 30 days per year, 1 hour or more per day, must receive an annual medical examination at the employer's expense. This annual examination must be provided within 10 working days of the worker's 30th day of removal work. In the event an NEA cannot be made because, for example, the flooring is not intact or the recommended work practices are not used, OSHA requires extensive worker controls, including the use of respirators, protective clothing, decontamination chambers, clean rooms, and workers with asbestos abatement training. In addition to the OSHA and other federal asbestos regulatory requirements, it is important to check state and local regulations to determine whether any other requirements may apply to the removal of asbestos-containing material. The first of the recommended work practices advises installers to lay new flooring over old. However, when this is not feasible, the following removal practices should be used. These practices are based on the assumption that unless proven to be asbestos-free, most floor coverings manufactured prior to the early 1980s contained asbestos and must be handled accordingly. When uncertain whether or not a floor contains asbestos, presume it does. To start the project, assemble the following tools: a broad, stiff-bladed wall scraper or floor scraper, a hammer or mallet, 2 garden-type sprayers, a hot air gun or radiant heat source, a wet-dry tank-type vacuum cleaner with a HEPA, high-efficiency particulate air filter, and a metal floor attachment, no brush. Liquid dishwashing detergent which contains anionic, non-ionic, and amphoteric surfactants, for example, ivory liquid. Large-sized, heavy-duty, impermeable trash bags, 6 mils or thicker, or containers with materials to close and tags for labeling, and a ground fault circuit interrupter for connection for the HEPA vacuum, the heat source, and any other electrical equipment. Because an electrical shock hazard exists, use this interrupter for any electrical connections in a wet environment. Always use safety equipment, including goggles, work gloves, and knee pads. In case wood underlayment must be removed, have the following equipment ready: a utility or hook knife, a chisel, and short and long-handled pry bars. During removal practices, observe the following special precautions. Never sand, dry scrape, saw, drill, bead blast, or mechanically chip or pulverize any resilient floor covering. Sanding or other abrasive techniques may render the product friable and release asbestos fibers. Always vacuum the floor carefully to prevent discharged air from blowing over the exposed flooring and causing dust to circulate. Be sure the vacuum is equipped with a HEPA filter. Do not sweep. The procedure for floor removal is different when wood underlayment is removed with the tile. This program will demonstrate both procedures in detail, beginning with the procedure for removing tiles only. Begin by removing all appliances and furniture from the work area. Remove any molding or binding strips that restrict access to the floor. Clean the entire floor with a vacuum equipped with a HEPA filter. Whenever possible, existing floors should be left in place, and the new floor should be adhered directly to the tile. Sometimes there is no alternative except to remove the existing tile. Broken tiles or bond and curling are some of the more common reasons. Areas exposed to the most traffic usually have the most tightly adhered tiles. Locate the tile farthest from the door in a low traffic area for beginning removal. This may be the easiest tile to remove. Floor tiles must be misted with water or other wetting agents from the garden sprayer before removal begins, unless heat will be used to remove them. Begin removing the first tile by wedging the wall scraper in the seam of two adjoining tiles. Slowly pry up the edge of one tile. Move the scraper under the tile with a slight twisting action. The goal is to remove the tile in one piece, although breakage of tiles is unavoidable. Immediately place this tile into a heavy-duty impermeable trash bag with an appropriate asbestos warning label. Do not break it into smaller pieces. Once the first tile is removed, the others will be easier to access. The wall scraper should be forced under the exposed edge for removal of all remaining tiles. Continue to dispose of all tiles immediately after removing them. Do not leave tiles in the work area. Do not try to make the trash more compact by breaking the tiles. Use additional containers as needed. Continue to mist the tiles to be removed. Some tiles will be more easily removed than others. In areas of heavy or hard adhesive, it may be more practical to force the scraper through the adhesive by striking its handle with a hammer. Use moderate force with the hammer. Keep the scraper angled at about 25 to 30 degrees from the floor. Use safety goggles and gloves for all removal procedures. If tapping the scraper with the hammer still proves to be ineffective with some tiles, you may soften the adhesive by heating it. Use a hot air gun or a radiant heat source. Thoroughly heat the tile until the heat penetrates the tile to the adhesive. Use gloves to protect yourself from burns. Alternatively, without first prying up the floor tiles using a scraper, apply heat to the tiles from a radiant heat source. If heat is used, remove the tiles by hand or by using a scraper. Wetting the tiles is not required if a heat source is used. The adhesive under the old flooring must be leveled or completely removed for installation of the new floor. The amount of treatment depends on the type of floor to be installed and the type of subfloor to be covered. Before beginning adhesive removal, prepare a detergent solution of 1 ounce of the approved liquid dishwashing detergent to 1 gallon of water and pour the solution into a garden sprayer. If the new floor will be installed over asphaltic adhesive on a concrete subfloor, as much adhesive as possible should be removed, leaving only a thin, level film. Clear all the tiles from an area farthest from the door, about 3 feet wide and 10 feet long. You'll be treating small areas of the subfloor as you remove the tiles. Moisten the areas with the solution mixed earlier. Do not excessively soak or flood wood floors with a detergent solution because this action can damage them to the extent of requiring new underlayment. Wet scrape the section where the tiles have just been removed. Be sure to remove the loose adhesive. All of the ridges should be made smooth. Pick up the scrapings as they are removed from the floor and immediately place them in a properly labeled heavy-duty impermeable trash bag or closed container. Dispose of bags or containers in an approved landfill only. After each area has been treated and all ridges in the adhesive have been removed, vacuum the standing water with a wet-dry vacuum equipped with a HEPA filter. Because an electrical shock hazard exists, always use a ground fault circuit interrupter for electrical connections in a wet environment. Be sure to remove the flooring and treat the adhesive in sections. The section should be approximately 3 feet wide by 10 feet long. Kneel on the remaining floor or the clean floor to wet scrape up the adhesive. Do not kneel on untreated areas. Repeat these practices until the whole floor has been treated. As you dispose of the tiles, do not break them into smaller pieces. Use additional disposal containers if needed. Close full bags tightly and seal them for disposal. Dispose of bags or containers in an approved landfill only. Contact your local authorities to determine the proper disposal site. As an alternative to wet scraping by hand, the terrazzo floor machine with wet cutting sand mixed with a liquid detergent solution is approved for adhesive removal. A detailed explanation of the procedure is included in the RFCI work practices. The adhesive may also be removed using a buffing machine with a highly coarse pad and a mop-on, mop-off, no machine scrub stripping solution as explained in the RFCI work practices. Do not use other power devices which would create asbestos dust for removal of flooring, adhesive, or underlayment. Once the entire floor has been removed and the adhesive has been treated, clean the floor again to remove the remaining dirt with the HEPA-equipped vacuum. Although the floor may now appear more dry, the ground fault circuit interrupter must still be used to protect you from shock hazards. Stand only in vacuumed areas as you proceed across the floor. Carefully remove the dust bag from the cleaner. Place it in the properly labeled heavy-duty trash bag or container for later disposal at an approved landfill. When the floor has dried thoroughly, it is ready to have a new floor covering installed, according to manufacturer's instructions. In some cases, however, where the flooring is in a damaged condition, a new underlayment may be necessary. The complete removal of resilient tile flooring over wood subfloors may not be practical in all cases, such as where non-recommended underlayments were used or where evidence of subfloor damage exists. As an alternative, the wood underlayment can be removed with the flooring adhered to it. Move all furniture and appliances out of the work area. Remove any binding strips or other restrictive moldings from doorways or walls. Clean the entire floor with a wet-dry vacuum equipped with a HEPA filter. Do not sweep. Prepare skids to be covered in 6mm polyethylene plastic. This is for placement of the removed underlayment boards. The underlayment joints at the corner farthest from the entry door will be removed first. Remove only the tiles covering the underlayment joints. Mist the tiles to be removed. Begin removing the first tile by using the wall scraper in the seam of 2 adjoining tiles. Move the scraper under the tile with a slight twisting action. Again, the goal is always to remove the tile in one piece, although breakage of tiles is unavoidable. Immediately place this tile into a properly labeled heavy-duty impermeable trash bag. Do not break it further into smaller pieces. Once the first tile is removed, the others will be easier to access. The wall scraper should be forced under the exposed edge for removal of all remaining tiles. Continue to dispose of all tiles immediately after removing them. Use additional containers as needed. With some tiles, it may be more practical to force a scraper through the adhesive by striking its handle with a hammer. Use moderate force with the hammer and keep the scraper angled about 25 to 30 degrees from the floor. Use safety goggles and gloves for all removal procedures. If tapping the scraper with the hammer still proves to be ineffective, heat the tile to soften the adhesive. Use an approved heat source, such as a hot air gun or a radiant heat source. Protect yourself from burns by using gloves. Once all of the tiles covering the joints of the first underlayment board are removed, drive the chisel between the underlayment board and the subfloor. Use the chisel to pry up the underlayment board high enough to insert the pry bar under the board and remove the chisel. Slowly and carefully pry up the underlayment board until the board is completely loose and can be removed in one piece. Use caution to avoid breaking the underlayment. If the underlayment breaks, heat the tile at the break, slice the tile with the utility knife, and continue to remove the broken underlayment. There will be wood splinters and fasteners protruding out of the back of most underlayment boards. For this reason, and for safety in all removal practices, always wear heavy gloves. Use a hammer to flatten any fasteners protruding from the bottom of the underlayment. Each piece of the underlayment should be removed from the work area as soon as it is pried up. This will eliminate an unnecessary hazard of tripping or stepping on a nail. Immediately place the underlayment board on the skids prepared earlier. To avoid puncturing the plastic, place only the first underlayment board with the tile side down. All of the remaining boards should be placed with the fasteners pointing down. After each underlayment board has been removed and placed on the skids, pull out any remaining fasteners or nails in the subfloor. Dispose of any other nails still lying in the work area. Continue removing the tiles covering the joints of each underlayment board as they are to be removed, misting or heating the tiles as you progress. You may not need a chisel to remove the remaining underlayment. The pry bar may be inserted under the exposed edge of each board. After all of the boards have been placed on skids, wrap the entire skid in the 6mm polyethylene plastic sheeting and secure it with duct tape. The skid should be labeled with an appropriate asbestos warning label. Dispose in an approved landfill only. When the removal of the entire floor and underlayment is complete, thoroughly check the exposed subfloor. Re-nail any loose areas and reset any fasteners which have been pulled up. Vacuum any dirt on the exposed subfloor. Remember to use the vacuum equipped with a HEPA filter and a metal floor attachment, not a brush. The area is now ready for installation of new floor covering or underlayment. Follow the manufacturer's installation instructions. While performing these work practices, observe the following habits. Wash your hands when taking a break or at the end of the day, and always avoid eating, drinking, smoking, or applying skin products while in the work area.